Okay, well, to my great disappointment, I forgot to press the record button. But because this was such a meaningful class, I am doing a recap of everything that we went through today. So, the very first thing is we pretty much talked about how things were heating up around the world and things are getting pretty serious. And I really started in on that because I had pulled the pictures from my picture book prior to that. And it was really, really meaningful. So let me give you the first picture. And this is the very first picture. Sorry for the glare. But it looks like it is a doctor's room. Or a doctor's waiting room, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, with probably in a pediatrician's office. It looks like there's children from all different age groups. There's the toddlers, there's probably they look like they're about 9, 10 years old. There's the babies, there's other children over here. Oops. But most of all, there is a dad with a small baby and looks like he is giving that baby loving care, attention. But to me, what's interesting about it, of course, is what children represent. What do children represent? They represent youth, they represent our inner child, emotions. And one thing I think that's very significant about this is that they're waiting. So, what are they waiting for? Well, that's a good question. But they're waiting. And if it is a pediatrician's office, which looks like to me that's what it is, it's about healing and waiting for a healing and maybe waiting to heal our inner child. But one way or another, this is very, very meaningful, something to do with children, our inner child, youth, innocence. But I surmise that it is a doctor's office, waiting room. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've been in many of them. They look just like that. And there's something to do with healing in that case, but they're waiting and they're children. Okay, that's the very first picture. Here is the second picture. And some people got some different opinions about this, but for me, her eyes look sympathetic. Her eyes look healing. She's got her teeth clenched. So there's something coming up here, but it's something to do with the woman. But because there is a microphone, she has something to say. Another thing that was noted was she is wearing pearls, and pearls are emotional and healing. And actually, I always tell people to wear pearls when they want to conceive or have a baby. That's what pearls do. But to me, she looks like a politician or a speaker, and she has something very, very important to say. Look at her eyes. To me, her eyes look sympathetic. There's something important. They're serious and sympathetic. So something's coming that deals with the healing, dealing with children, or something to do with youth. But I got two other pictures that I was meant to pull. So we've got a total of 4 pictures that are telling us a story about what's to come and what we need to prepare for. Here's the next picture. It's interesting that it's a child again. And I remember I chose that picture from my book because of the expression on this child. It can be seen many ways. It can be, well, I thought when I first chose this picture that he looked a little bit, what's the word? He's just kind of, well, I could say he looks kind of put out, like, not this again. But he looks a little obstinate, if I could say, but I don't know. It's not a good look. It's a look where he's troubled. He's troubled. That's when I put it up here, it doesn't even look as bad as when I look at it in person, but he looks like he could be a little obstinate, a little bit defiant, or he's put out, or he's sad. It could be sadness. Whatever. There's an emotion behind that. I will give it that. Now, this is the picture that tells the story. And it is a famous photo. I didn't know that. Michelle looked it up. But it's Eisenhower. And it is the day that they are making strategic plans, something about in France. I think it was in 1944, something relative to like D-Day. But it's interesting because this conference was held where they are making strategic plans about war. And it was called something like the Neptune event. I can't remember exactly. Michelle looked it up, and it was something to do with Neptune. The name of the treaty or the event that they were planning. So, of course, that has great meaning to us, knowing what Neptune does in astrology, which is pretty much you can't see what's about to happen. Now, behind them, if you'll look, it is a map of Europe. As you can see up there, there's England, there's France, and of course, that's where they're making their plans for. So basically, it's England, France, and the heart of Europe. Something's going on here. They're making strategic plans. They're officers, President Eisenhower. So what we surmise from the looks of all those pictures is there's something about a waiting. There's something we're waiting on, and it's something that can deal with the healing. And there's something about an outbreak that could deal with war. And I must say, this picture means it involves the United States. This is the United States president with his top officials that make the plans strategically dealing with war. So we have got some very serious things happening, but I think there's something about a woman speaker that's going to speak out about something very purposeful and very meaningful concerning the prospects of where we are headed in the area of war. So another thing I'm going to pull up the astrology chart that we looked at. Let me focus in on that. First, I got to pull it up here. So February 21st, 12 noon is when we looked at this. And of course, I'm in Dallas. So I am going to share the screen. Here we go. And I'm going to give you what we surmised from this as well. Okay. Oops. So here we go. Here is the chart for today's astrology. And what I was noting was Mars being right there on the ascendant. Mars being on the ascendant. Mars is action. Mars is also war and anger. But more than anything, I think, and Joan had pointed it out, courage and moving forward. So courage, and so much is about to happen. And I also made mention that the degrees that Mars sits right now was actually transiting over the degrees that Mars was retrograde. So this is still kind of called the shadow period of Mars, because until Mars really does reach about 0 to 1 degree of Gemini, Mars is still under the effects, just like when Mercury transits through the shadow periods. The retrograde process might be over with the planet in actual retrograde, but it's still not crossed over the shadow period. And remember, Mars started to go retrograde. It was around, it was October 30th. It was at 1 degree of Gemini. And then Mars went retrograde and traveled 1 degree, 0 degrees, and all the way back into the sign of Taurus, all the way till 13 degrees. So now that Mars is transiting direct, it still has a retrograde feeling in effect till it passes past the degree where it started the retrograde process at 1 degree of Gemini. So this is important. That station of Mars, I think, is really important. It's stationed to turn retrograde at 1 degree of Gemini. Therefore, you're going to find that when it hits at 1 degree of Gemini, something's about to break out, and it's big. Okay. But right now, it still has this quality of retrograde. And I happen to know that Mars is out of bounds right now. It means it's beyond the parameters of the declination. So out of bounds is what it sounds like. Mars is out of control. Mars is anger, and it can deal with war. So something's about to give right now, especially with these pictures that we pulled today. It's incredible. And I might add that yesterday was the new moon. We were talking about that. So what's a new moon? When the sun and the moon come together at the same exact degree. And it was 7 degrees of Aquarius, which happens to be the degree marking of the natal moon of the United States chart. So for the new moon to happen exactly on that degree, which is 7 degrees of Aquarius, is incredibly meaningful. Furthermore, I have been referencing in a lot of my work how 7 degrees is also the degree of President Biden's K2. And if you consider what K2 means in astrology, it's very spiritual, but it can deal with losses. And the fact that Biden's K2 sits on the United States moon, this could indicate a time of losses. Now, in President Biden's chart, his K2 sits in his 4th house. Now, the 4th house can deal with physically his heart, his home, but for the country, it represents the homeland. And so his K2 being there on the United States moon and the new moon occurring yesterday on that degree marking represents something is about to happen in terms of the homeland, the president, everything. And here's another interesting fact. Transiting Saturn is approaching that mark right here. Saturn today sits at 4 degrees, 10 minutes of Aquarius. So that means transiting Saturn is about to cross over the US natal moon at 7 degrees of Aquarius. And Biden's K2 sits at 7 degrees of Aquarius, where transiting Saturn will cross over it. This is difficult for him. And as I mentioned in today's class, which I thought was the reason why maybe it didn't get recorded, this is really difficult for him, either physically where he'll be, or emotionally. Something will happen where he will have to either step down, or something will happen with War and Peace, or something will happen with his health. But transiting Saturn will cross over this degree mark in March, and then again 2 more times throughout the year. I believe it's another time around October or September, and then the other times at the end of the year, around November, December. So there are 3 crossings and 3 very difficult points in time. And I have mentioned in all of my recordings, I've actually recorded my March predictions already. And looking at that, I said, March is going to be one of the worst months of the year. We're going to see enormous things happening. And I think because, well, I didn't mention that today, but because Mars is going to cross over its stationing degree at 1 degree of Gemini, that ties in China because Xi Jinping, he has his sun at 1 degree of Gemini. The United States natal Mars is at 0 degrees of Gemini. Tying all this together with the transit of Mars going over, something's going to happen. And this chart tells me, you know, something dealing with leadership in the world, something's going to happen. Saturn, Sun, Moon in the 10th house. That's heavy. Saturn is heavy and it deals with rulership around the world. I wrote in my predictions, I wrote that there was going to be a great loss and it will have something to do with the leader in the world. Now, looking at Biden's chart, that's scary. But here's another thing. I keep getting that there's going to be something when Jupiter goes into Aries, which happens the end, actually the 21st of April, will be there for a solid year. But once Jupiter goes into Aries, that we're going to find that there's going to be a time that people are going to be forced to come together, or they will want to come together because of a loss. Remember that happened on September 11th. We haven't had a time where our polarization has been so extreme, where we are all, in a sense, separated. And there may be an event that has to bring us together. And that's what I surmise from all the pictures that we pulled today and from the astrology. So because this felt so dire, we felt it was a need to do a meditation, which we did, to create world peace and healing. And we all prayed, may the divine bring us together, bring our hearts together for a healing that opens our heart to the healing power of love, unconditional love. And that's what we prayed for. And that's what we spent time in meditation and quiet time. Very interesting that this most powerful shooting stars somehow was not recorded. I completely forgot, didn't even realize it wasn't recorded till I tried to upload it. Couldn't find it. Realized I didn't press record. But I think you're getting the gist of it. And I think by looking at those pictures, you will come up with more ideas as to what is about to unfold and what's to happen. Last week, we had seen the picture look like war, someone suffering. But it's all telling us the same thing. We're all meant to come together for a healing. And we may need a destructive event that forces us to come together. And that's what I think we're being told. That's what I think we need to pray for. So all of you that didn't get to participate in Shooting Stars today, I want you to meditate and pray that may the best thing happen for the healing of our planet and all of humanity. Because we don't know exactly what the truth is. We may think we know, but leave it up to the divine that does know to create the healing that is best for all of us, for our highest good. May the divine heal humanity through love and bring us to the highest good for everyone on the planet. And sometimes we don't know exactly what that is, but we must surrender to the divine healing it. And we must send our prayers for healing because we need it now. Now is the time our planet needs it. So one more thing, tomorrow, I hope you watch this before tomorrow, February 22nd. If you can see where the moon is right now, well, the moon, and I'm looking at right now, I pulled up the transits for as I speak, which is almost 5 o'clock here in Dallas. The moon has entered into Pisces, and it's coming to align with exalted Venus and Jupiter. And by tomorrow, Central Standard Time, around 8 a.m. and 8:30 a.m., the moon will be wedged between Venus and Jupiter. But the ascendant for Central Standard Time, Venus will be on the ascendant around 8, and around 8:30, Jupiter will be on the ascendant, which I want you to do some special prayers to help heal the planet and give it to the divine to heal. Let the divine, which whatever you want to call God consciousness, the power, the essence, that is pure divine love, decide what is best for all of us and heal. Because all we're here for is healing. Healing our humanity, healing our lives, healing everything on the planet. That's what we, all of us, want to come together to do. That's why we're here. So tomorrow, when Jupiter, Venus, and Moon all align, is a great day for you to do anything that you want to manifest and grow. Start it tomorrow, because it's a wonderful day, Muhurta, to plan and plan things. So that's what tomorrow's good for, February 22nd. And let me see here. The other thing I went over was imagination and creation, because I was sorting through, and I remember where we ended. I was sorting through that through our imagination, our mind, we can create on this planet. And we have to really get in touch with our manifestation and creating. We can manifest. This whole dimensional field is about creating, and we can create anything. And we went into, maybe that's why it wasn't recorded, but we went into the Silva mind control method that was really popular in the 70s. And it was created by Jose Silva, who, this was considered a mind control. But what it's for is essentially to use your mind, go down to the way alpha levels of the mind, where it's like the point where you're about to fall asleep. And then you're connected to your subconscious mind. And that is the area where we are most creative. And so check it out. It's been out since the 70s. And I noted in our class some people that used it to control other people's minds for the negative. And, anything this powerful can be used for, well, it was meant to be for the positive. But remember, sometimes people can get really in tune with using these powers, not only for the positive, but for the negative. But remember, this is what we're here together for, to use these powers of the mind for the positive. And so the Silver Mind method that I've been studying, they used to have all these classes and groups that would meet for it back in the 70s. But he says, and he's been gone for a long time. He lived in Texas, in Laredo, and he taught this beautiful method that can really, really change lives for the positive. Count backwards. He said, when you count backwards, it takes you down and it relaxes you, and down, down, lower, lower, almost like a mesmerizing thing, or yes, the mind. So I, at night, will count down from 50 to 0. And then at that point, every time I'm counting down, I imagine going deeper and relaxing more and more and more. And once you get to that level, then you can imagine the things that you want to create. It's everything that we've ever talked about with the law of attraction. But the difference between the Silver Mind method is that you are really taking control and action with the mind. Because meditation, pretty much you're going down to these deep, deep levels and you're at peace and connected with all that is in the divine. But once you get there to that point, the Silver Mind method is telling you how to create in your life, in your world, in your life. So that's what it should be used for the positive. And I want everyone to meditate, to count backwards. And then when you get to that really, really deep place with the subconscious mind, let us all pray for world peace and healing to the planet, because we need it. But use this method, bringing ourselves down, and Google it. Yes, I have like a number of books on my Kindle right now with the Silver Mind method that really harnesses the power of the mind. Because as all these books, whether it's the law of attraction, any of these spiritual books, Rhonda Byrne has said so well, if you really know who you are and the power of your mind, you wouldn't believe it. But we must know it, not just believe it, but know it, and use these powers for the highest good to transform not only ourselves and our lives, but the planet. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, what we spoke of today. And I apologize. It was a fabulous class. It really, really was. That you aren't able to see it if you weren't there today. But those who were there know. And in a nutshell, I gave you everything that we talked about today. And maybe you can connect with some of the people that were there and talk about it if you want. But once again, my apologies. Everything happens for a reason. Don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's something that May said. May, you said something really powerful, but I'll leave it that. It's just that there's more to this that's going on in the world than we know. And she had some very valuable information concerning where she's at and what she knew. So, like I said, everything happens for a reason. But with that, I'll close and thank you, everyone, for all you do to make this group one of the most powerful groups, I think, present on the planet right now in terms of what we do and how we do it. Thank you.